endorsed by a group of more than 100 black activists. Black women say that the Democratic presidential candidate's issues speak directly with black voters. This comes one day after Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley endorsed Warren as well. She broke from the group of progressive congresswomen known as the Squad, who actually chose to support Bernie Sanders. I want to bring in Elena Schneider and Caitlin Huey-Burns. Elena is a national political reporter for Politico, and Caitlin is a CBSN political reporter as well. So, Caitlin, how important is it when you're talking about black voters and you're talking about the electorate? How important is this voting bloc?
It's critically important, especially for Democrats. A lot of Democratic analysts say that you cannot get the Democratic Party nomination without having broad support, including significant support among African-American voters. And this is something that most of the candidates, with the exception of Joe Biden, have really been struggling with. We've been talking about the struggles with Pete Buttigieg and how he's trying to expand his support beyond white voters and has had some trouble with that and has come under criticism for that. Well, similar criticism applies to these other candidates. Elizabeth Warren is among them. So she got that endorsement from Ayanna Pressley yesterday, which is really key, can help her. She is going to actually be campaigning with her in North Carolina at a historically black university, an HBCU, which is also a critical stop for a lot of these candidates. So that could give her a boost. These endorsements could give her a boost. And this is something that Joe Biden, as he's been lagging in some of the early state polls, has pointed to that sets him apart from the other candidates, that he has significant support among African-American voters and that his coalition is much more diverse. So his campaign is trying to argue if they don't place in the top in Iowa or New Hampshire, they can then go on to Nevada and South Carolina and help make up the support there. We'll see if that works, but that's certainly part of the strategy.
Lena, Joe Biden is going after Warren again. Yesterday, he called her an elitist. Talk about the relationship sort of between the two of them and Warren's background. It comes into play, during her time in the campaign as well.
So this cuts to the core of Biden's theme about his campaign, which is that he's the only Democrat who can win back those white working class voters who flipped from President Barack Obama to Donald Trump in 2016. And so this really cuts at the core of what he's trying to sell to primary voters as to why he's more electable than Elizabeth Warren. But against that backdrop of him escalating attacks is really the hard to ignore element, which is that he's continued and steadily fallen in the polls. And he's seen that challenge come from Elizabeth Warren, both nationally and in those early state polls where he's continued to slide. And look, of course, part of why he's maintained his front-runner status is because of what you were just discussing, his support among African-American voters in a very diverse coalition. But look, Elizabeth Warren has started to steadily chip away at that, seen her numbers slowly, still not high, very high, but slowly seen those numbers rise. And she's really put up a challenge to him as sort of now basically co-front-runners in this Democratic primary.
Caitlin, when you're talking about Senator Elizabeth Warren's tax plan, we saw the founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, come out attacking it. What do you make of that? The fact that it's getting
an interesting dynamic. Yeah. I didn't quite have Bill Gates on the bingo card, but he has now inserted himself in this conversation because Elizabeth Warren has been talking about this wealth tax, and she thinks that it will pay for a lot of what she wants to propose, a lot of her proposals. She also last week came out with a way to pay for Medicare for all, which she had been under criticism for not having a pay-for plan. And part of that also includes additional taxes on the wealthy. And so now you're seeing a lot of billionaires kind of come out and raise concerns about Elizabeth Warren's plans. Now, this is something that you can expect the Warren campaign to kind of use as a badge of honor. Every time she's attacked by a billionaire, she kind of uses that to fuel her campaign. Right. So that's a dynamic that we are seeing. The added dynamic, too, is with Joe Biden now, as Elena was saying, getting into this conversation and trying to paint Elizabeth Warren herself as part of an elite group.
So, Elena, there's a new Quinnipiac poll on Iowa. It was out yesterday where it actually qualified Tulsi Gabbard for this November debate. You got Amy Klobuchar for the December debate. What can we expect on the stage when you've got both of them?
Well, look, I think both of them were certainly thrilled based on the statements coming out of their campaigns that they're going to be able to be on that stage, because we have seen that as soon as a candidate is yanked from that DNC debate stage, it's very difficult, if not impossible, for them to get back on it and to sort of sustain a real effort on the ground in Iowa in the early states. And look, what we can expect from both of them is what we've seen before, which is for Tulsi Gabbard, somebody who's really willing to go out there and go after candidates in a very targeted, very aggressive manner, as she did with both Kamala Harris and tried to do with Pete Buttigieg over Syria, and in the most recent debate. And with Amy Klobuchar, look, she's somebody who really sees herself as a Biden alternative, and she wants to continue to present herself as a more moderate candidate, but is someone who is younger, a woman, and who represents the Midwest. And so I think that she certainly believes that this is an opportunity for her to grow that, expand that path for her, as we see Biden has faded somewhat in both national and early state polls.
Caitlin, many of these Democratic candidates also are serving on Capitol Hill. If these impeachment inquiries continue, this impeachment inquiry continues, how is that going to work when they've got the campaign trail and they've got their current role?
It's a great question, and something that some of these campaigns are starting to consider, given that you have several senators running. And if you just look at the calendar, the House wants to wrap this up by the end of the year, kick it over to the Senate. If they're taking this up in January, that is prime time campaign season, especially in Iowa. So some of these campaigns say that this is part of their constitutional duty, that they will be in Washington and also add in time on the campaign trail. A lot of them are trying to work on collecting endorsements, which you can argue the value of endorsements in this day and age, but this would be a critical kind of way to have surrogates out on the trail continuing your message. It also creates some openings for people that are not in politics right now, or current office holders, Pete Buttigieg, Joe Biden, even an Andrew Yang. Does this give them more time to be on the campaign trail? And then conversely, does it help some of those senators who are looking to break through, Kamala Harris among them, looking for a way to inch her campaign forward? Can she use, her role on Capitol Hill as a way to keep this in the spotlight? We'll see.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns, Elena Schneider, thank you both.